Hello, and welcome to this very special episode of the Reset Podcast. This is part of my 29 Days of Magic series where I interview an amazing Black woman every single day for each day of Black History Month. And I am super delighted to have this conversation today with the wonderful Martha Underwood. She's a CEO and founder of Prism, a game-changing company that you need, and you're like, oh wait, I need to ask my parents. I can't wait to have this conversation. Just take a listen. Hey, Martha.
Hey, Laura. Thank you for having me.
Oh, I'm delighted to have you. So, but 9 Days of Magic is this annual series I've done, and the questions are easy. Do not worry. So,
Okay.
first things first. Martha, what was your first job?
My first job. Okay, so now first job out of college or
What do
first
you
job
pick?
ever,
What do you pick?
ever.
Whatever you pick.
Because I won't claim my first job. My first job was Taco Bell, and we called it Taco Hell. Um,
I
which, which
so
my dad is like, you got to get a job. So I'm gonna talk about my first real job, which was IBM, straight out of college. So I am an IBMer, and it was pretty awesome growing up in IBM.
so what would you do as an IBMer?
I was an EDI analyst, basically on the supply chain side, making sure that POs and invoices that came through in X and O's and ASCII characters made it through in the right format to mom and pops on the other side that were fulfilling the contracts to the big boys like Boeing, Mercedes, and all of those guys. So fun technical stuff.
Ooh, cool. All right. So how long did you last there before you moved on to the career journey that we have right now?
So I was there for 10 years until most companies decide to sell divisions, and IBM, I was worked for IBM Global Services, and they decided to sell that division over to GXS, Global Exchange Services. And I was there for about a year until I left. I met a boy, and
That's how it always starts.
that's how it always starts. Met a boy and left Tampa, Florida, and moved to Birmingham, Alabama, got married, and started this whole other journey.
Wow. So it all started with a boy. So you left Florida to go to Alabama. What was
Yes.
that like?
Oh man, that was crazy because I was raised in Miami. I'm a Miami girl, Caribbean, but then Miami girl, big city girl. And so coming to Birmingham, I was like, well, first of all, we coming to Alabama. So I had all of the preconceived notions about Alabama in my head. And then I got here and it was a pleasant surprise. Um, Alabama is more, well, Birmingham, I would say in particular, was more of a family town. And we got pregnant like pretty quickly, which we didn't want to do, but KJ is my blessing. And being here made me realize that this is a great place to raise a family. And so it stuck. Great food, great schools, great weather, affordability as it relates to home. And then it had great jobs at the time. So, and it still has great jobs. So we made it home.
Awesome. So, okay, so you moved to Alabama for a boy.
Yes.
So, where did that career journey take you? So, how are we sitting here now have a conversation? What's that journey like?
Wow. Girl, that journey was whew. So when I left, when I left Tampa and came to Birmingham, Birmingham was like starting to boom on the startup scene. And as a technical person, I was like, well, where do I go? What jobs do I get? And I ended up at a small health informatic company that timing was amazing because the ACA Act, Obamacare, was released, which had the High Tech Act attached to it, which mandated hospital systems to take their manual paper patient records and make it electronic. And so I got on with a startup company to help hospitals and clinicians take the paper documents as it relates to your clinical records and make them electronic. And so I got to be on the forefront of that and
Wow.
also create patient portals, which was pretty amazing. So all the patient portals that we have today, I got to work on some of the first iterations of that. So that was cool. Worked there for about 5 years, and then a company out of Silicon Valley came calling and said, hey, Martha, we want you to come over here because we just purchased or acquired a smaller company in Birmingham, and we need someone to be able to be the bridge from Birmingham to Silicon Valley. And so I went over there to be Their director over like client services, project management, helped them build their quality assurance department, help build out support. They started out when I started with about 12 employees. And by the time that I left 4 years later, I had positioned them very well because I took them from about $500,000 in revenue a quarter to about 4 million, then to about 100 employees and positioned them to be sold to SAP. And so they got sold to SAP. Took a break for a little bit because I was a mom. I got two boys, 16 and 14, and they keep me on my toes. During that break, a friend of mine that I had worked with closely, who's a recruiter, said, "Hey, Martha, BBVA Global Bank is looking for a head of transformation. Do you want to come over here?" And I'm like, sure, why not? So I went over there and I head up their mortgage services, their branch small, or the branch operations, their small business platforms, and a little bit of treasury. And so did that for about 5 years until I said after COVID, well, Martha, you know what? It's time to do your own thing. And now here I sit.
Pretty amazing. And it's interesting how you ended up not being in Silicon Valley, but being at the forefront of technology right there in Alabama.
Yes, right. And people talk about that. And actually, Birmingham, Alabama has a growing tech scene and a lot of tech talent here. And you wouldn't know it unless you visited and you were here. But yeah, it's pretty fascinating. And sometimes I just look back and think about how blessed I am and how God just placed me here because I would have never chose Alabama. But you walk the path and you end up exactly where you're supposed to be.
Awesome. So tell us about Prism.
So Prism. I always say Prism was born out of love for my parents. Prism is a digital vault that we sell to banks and financial institutions. So think of it as the digital evolution of the safety deposit box with some added benefits. The main added benefit is that you own it. You own your data and you can take it wherever you need to. So if you signed up at one bank, you wanted to go to another bank, no more begging them for your data and your information. It's just a matter of decoupling it with their organization through email or however we've authenticated you there to the new institution. So that's the one plus. The second plus is, and the biggest plus is, we can automate the transfer of the money that your parents or the account holder may have to you as a beneficiary automatically to your account. Because we know that whenever someone dies or there's an emergency, the first thing people are looking for is where's the money and how do I get access to it? And a lot of times people, are not planning for something to happen, but it happens and it catches us off guard because we always say we do it later. And I know, and I always say, later does not belong to us. And so we help make sure that money gets passed down to its intended heirs by automating that transfer. So that's Prism, and I've been doing that for the past 4 years. And the reason why I say I've done it, I created it out of love for my parents, in particular my dad, is because I'm a daddy's girl. Seven of us, but I'm a daddy's girl. And during Hurricane Irma in 2017, he gets on the roof at 77 of his neighbor. They're good friends and thinks that he's going to take his chainsaw and cut off the tree that had fallen on their roof. Well, while he's up there, he slips and falls and he goes unconscious. And in a big family like mine, or most families, someone always gets the phone call whenever there's a tragedy or there's an emergency. And here I am, what, 500, 600 miles away, getting the call that my dad is unconscious and he's being rushed to the hospital. My mom and dad this year is celebrating their 63rd, that is 63 years of marriage.
Wow.
So yes, I ask my mom every day how she did it, how she does. Right? But so they are freaking frack, and she was just distraught, right? Because he wasn't lucid. We didn't know the extent of the damage. We get to the hospital, and they're asking my mom all types of questions. Does he have a medical power of attorney? Is he allergic to anything? What's your insurance? All of the things. And it got us thinking, hell, we didn't know where any of this stuff was. So, how do we get access to it? How do we make sure that he's taken care of? And if, at the time we didn't know what was happening to him. He ended up having just some broken ribs, so he's okay. But we were like, if the unthinkable had happened at that time, how are we going to be able to take care of mom? Because although dad kept meticulous records, he knew what that system was,
He
and
did.
I had no idea. Like, what's your system and what's this or what's that or what's the bank accounts? And he's worked pretty hard all of his life to accumulate some wealth. And we were like, we cannot let it fall on the floor, so to speak. We need to be organized. And that is when Prism was born, where I kind of created something for myself and our family to be able to store that and put our hands on it whenever we needed to, just by picking up our phone or getting on our laptops. And then when 2020 hit, and several of my friends said, "Hey, Martha, I knew you was working on this thing. My mom died, or my grandma died, or my spouse died." And that's typically too late. But it made me realize that this is a bigger need. And so I said, well, let me productize it and bring it to market, which we have. And we've been doing it ever since.
Amazing and so necessary because, as everyone's parents get older, it's a highly uncomfortable conversation to have with your parents, but it's
Yep.
necessary. And now things can be digitized. So
Yep.
to be this law, is there a folder somewhere that someone has to go and find in the house in the safe under their mattress, blah, 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 blah. We've seen this recently, unfortunately, with the fires where people had all this important information under a mattress
Yep.
or,
Yep.
in a book somewhere. Like I heard a story of someone who had gold bars in their house.
Wow.
And and then they had to evacuate. So, well, how do you account for gold bars?
Right. Right.
So,
Right.
what makes you guys is so easy to use as a platform?
Oh, we make it easy to use because it's just 3 steps, right? You basically sign up, you connect your accounts, you invite your people, you upload your documents, and it's just that simple because we know that it is a complex and overwhelming process, right? And it's not meant for you to just do it all at once. Like they always say, like, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time, right? You take your time and you make sure that, okay, oh man, I know that my son's blue form has just been updated. Let me take a picture and let me just update, like upload it here. Everyone has access to it. Or we just got new life insurance policy. Let me make sure that I also have a digital copy and someone else has access to it, right? Because the thing is, you go through different life phases, and through different life phases, you have different documents, right? I had two file folders full of documents that I had to go through and say, these aren't needed anymore, and this is what's needed. And it took me a while to do that. But after I did that, maintaining it is pretty simple. Right? It's pretty simple. So we didn't want to make something that was so feature rich where it's overwhelming because the process of even having these conversations, like you said, can be daunting. And so we didn't want to add on to it. So we made the platform really simple to use.
Awesome. And so, what's been the response?
The response has been great. We're in a couple of banks right now. We have several financial advisors that uses it. And what we just did actually in the face of the fires, right, is because we are an enterprise software. We sell to banks. We're B2B, but we opened up the individual functionality to let anybody go sign up because we heard so many devastating stories from LA. And we were like, how can we do our part? Because this is so important. And so we've opened it up for that individuals can sign up and go in and get started on the platform.
Awesome. And I think, especially for like Caribbean families, which they never want to talk about these sorts of things.
Oh, girl, don't let's not even go down the Caribbean route. They absolutely don't want to talk about it.
And he'll just leave it all to God.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
And it's not helpful. So, how can folks find out about what Prism is doing right now? Because I feel like you're gonna get some responses.
Sure. So they can find us on Instagram at Get Prism. That's GETPRISMM. They can go to getprism.com and find it. And if they scroll down to the bottom, it says you can create an individual account if they want to do that. And then they can connect with me on LinkedIn. Just find me under Martha Underwood with Prism. Can't miss me.
Fantastic. So along the way, what's been probably the one thing you probably want to tell like 18-year-old Martha?
Oh man. I would tell 18-year-old Martha. to take more risks and not to be afraid of your brilliance. Because one of the things that, we talk about how black don't crack, like I'm about to be 50 this year. And you know that meme that's been going around with the little girls, like, girl, I'll be 50 next year. That's how I feel, right? But I look back and I realized that I was really creative, loved art, loved music, loved to dance, but I was also a thinker and loved chemistry, loved coding because I started coding in the eighth grade. But like people were always trying to put me in a box, like Martha, you just need to be technical and not write or not draw or not do these things, even as a high school as 18-year-old Martha. And so now looking back, I'd say, don't listen to those voices, embrace all of those talents, embrace that brilliance and take the risk and play in all of those lanes because at this age they all intersect anyway. I think that's what gives me some of my superpower is the creative side makes me pretty good on the technical side as well as the strategy side. So I would tell 18-year-old Martha, don't listen to the outside voices, go with your gut and take more risk.
Always take more risk because that's the thing that is so oftentimes, especially as Black women, we get this. Well, just follow this path,
Yep,
work for 20 years, it'll be okay.
yep, yep.
And that does not happen in any other group of people. Like
Nope.
we need to know the importance of starting a tech company, but also becoming an angel investor,
Yes,
being in a syndicate, learning how to play golf, like
yes,
being in those other rooms, um,
yes.
is so important. And I've learned it so deeply in the last few years that we forget that when we see other folks who don't look like us,
Yeah,
it's because, well, yeah, they're in different rooms.
yeah, they are.
How do you get in those rooms? You take risks.
Yeah, absolutely. I would take them all because you look back and I'm like, man, I should have did this or I should have did that. And I don't live in regret, but because it got me in the path that I am on now. But I absolutely will tell any 18-year-old, and if I can go back in time, tell myself, just go for it. Just take the risk because the reward on the other side can be amazing.
Well, that's the thing that's truly impactful about all of this is that moment of taking risks, it also fuels you. And that's how you've taken a risk to start Prism because
Yeah.
it's necessary. You saw a need, and it's a niche that is only growing because we're becoming an elder population.
Yep.
And utilizing technology in a way that's just smart and doesn't bother people is so incredible and so needed.
Yeah. That's why I do it. That's why I wake up and do it every day. And it's like, this is something that we need to do. And as women, the burden typically falls on us.
Always daughter. So
Always the daughter. And so I was just like, well, we have to we can be more efficient, right? And we could use the tools more efficiently to make our lives easier because I'm still a mom, I'm still a wife, I'm still a sister, and I have all of those other duties to do. And I still need to take time for self-care. And so I don't want to spend, hours looking for papers or doing these things when there's a better way to do it. And so that's really why I'm really passionate about what we do and know that we're going to make a significant impact on lives to come.
phenomenal. So you're doing all that stuff, your wife and mom. Question for you. What do you do for Martha? What do you do for your self-care?
Martha gets a lot of massages because, Martha likes to go to the spa a lot. And, I love music. And so I'll go to concerts all the time, even if I'm going by myself. I did take my boys with me to go see Coldplay and Her, which was cool. So yeah, I try to escape through music and through just self-care, right? And then exercising because we all got to do that.
Oh, yeah. Well, music is always fuels the soul.
Yes, it does.
So I have two more questions for you. Do you have a give and or an ask of the audience?
A give. Well, a give. What I will give is actually I'll create a code to give the audience 50% off Prism. And so let me create a code right now. For you said this month is magic for women, so I'll create magic, and so 50% off for anyone who signs up with the code magic. I'm writing that down right now.
Awesome.
So
That's
that's a
phenomenal.
give. That's a give. And the ask is, I would ask us to be more kind to ourselves. And in this climate that we're in, because you just asked me about self-care, is to focus on self-care. Because we need each other and we need to be here for our families. And I can just see just within my, circle of friends how just everything is weighing on us. And so I would say give ourselves grace. I would ask us to give ourselves grace and try to be more present with the time that we have.
I love,
So that's my ask.
I love it. And I decided to add a new question into this batch. What brings you joy?
You know what? Right now, I'd say my boys bring me joy. Because I always say I must have done something wonderful in my past life to get two teenage boys that are just so full of life and joy, and they don't give me no problems. Like I hear some of the other teenage moms of teenage boys tell me stuff, and I'm like, I don't deal with that. Um, and so they really do bring me joy when there's hard days, because even though they're 16 and 14, whenever they come home, they still come in and just give me hugs, or they'll come lay with me on the couch and be like, Mom. And that really does bring me joy.
I love that. Well, Martha, you have been a phenomenal guest, which I knew you would be,
Oh, thank you.
as part of our dynamic series of phenomenal Black women through Black History Month. And thank you so much for being part of 29 Days of Magic. It was a joy to hear your story and so necessary. We'll put all the details in the show notes for folks to get that promo code because what President is offering is a game changer. I know I have a lot of contemporary friends out on listening who like are terrified of having this conversation with their parents. However, you do want to know where stuff is. You don't want to wait until something bad happens to be able to find the paperwork and insurance documents, all that stuff. And Prism allows you to do that. So it's just a couple clicks away. And it's so very necessary. So take Martha up on her offer of the code. And thank you so much for being part of 29 Days of Magic, Martha.
Oh, thank you for having me, Laura. It's been a pleasure being here.
Awesome. And that is our show.